Welcome to Outside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert writer for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. Life's too bright for the Patriots. We gotta wear shades. I know everybody around me filming this is like, Mike, please don't go there, but I couldn't resist. Anyway, the future is bright for the Patriots, and certainly for their secondary. Something I know you want to touch on, Chris, is their secondary play led by none other than Darrelle Revis. You think, Chris, and I don't know if I buy it yet, that the Darrelle Revis angle here in New England has been underplayed.
It really is, not just in New England, but I think nationally. When you look at the way this team has been constructed, you look at what they've been able to accomplish over the first week of camp. Revis has had a great first week of camp. Revis was tremendous today, knocking away a handful of balls, had a couple of really big interceptions. Looked tremendous in this defense. He looked like he's fitting in very naturally. We talked to Tommy Kelly after practice, the veteran defensive tackle. We said, what can Revis bring to this team that maybe they didn't have before? He said, Revis is Revis. You kidding me? His resume speaks for itself. So I don't think it's being underplayed here as much as it's being underplayed nationally. And I think really you could make a lot of comparisons to Randy Moss in 2007, where we didn't really see a lot of Randy Moss in 2007, sat out for a big chunk of camp and was a big surprise come week one. I think nationally, one of the biggest surprises, if not the biggest surprise for this team come week one, is going to be the emergence of Darrelle Revis.
He's one of the most confident cornerbacks, and for good reason, in the National Football League. But picking off Tom Brady, do you think that's important for Darrelle and his confidence coming into New England in his first year?
Yeah, I do. And I think he said it the other day. It was interesting. He said, look, there's some butterflies here. Because I'm a new guy. I'm coming into this team. These are my first practices. I want to make a good impression with my teammates. So I do think that there is something to that. I don't think that he's not confident, but I do think that helps with his overall acclimation process to this defense.
I had a chance to talk to Ty Law on Monday. He is obviously going into the Patriots Hall of Fame on Friday here at Gillette Stadium, more specifically the Hall of Patriot Place. But Ty Law naturally was asked about one Darrelle Revis. They went to the same high school in Western Pennsylvania, Aliquippa High School, and Ty Law obviously went there many years before Darrelle Revis, but they stay in close contact. And Ty Law told us, yeah, he did recommend coming to New England because Bill Belichick will give you freedom that he won't give other players. And Ty Law admitted to us, essentially, Bill Belichick does treat players differently, especially when you have the skill set and you are the star caliber player that Darrelle Revis is.
Yeah, exactly. I think you do have to build up some currency with a coach, but I think when he recognizes how good you are and how good you are within the context of his defense, this defense, and the way they play defense here, I think he will give you free reign. We've seen that from guys on the offensive side of the ball the last few years here. Talked about Moss, Welker. There's a handful of guys who he trusts, and I think that it's funny, going back to something that Tommy Kelly was saying before, in this defense is all about building up trust, and I think Revis is working on that right now.
All right, let's talk about some news of the day. Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium as the Patriots got back to practice for in pads for a third consecutive workout. That is the return of Alfonso Dennard. Speaking of the Patriots secondary, what do you make of Alfonso Dennard coming in? He did get into some reps, some 7-on-7 drills, some individual defensive drills. What do you make of his return?
I think he's starting slow, and I think you need to have him start slow. He's coming back from the shoulder issue in the offseason, so the idea of working him back up to speed gradually makes an awful lot of sense in this defense. Look, this is not like it was a couple of years ago, though, where they really needed Alfonso Dennard to be a part of this defense. They can kind of work him back very slowly. You do have the first 4 games of the year where ostensibly you are going to need him opposite Darrelle Revis in place of Brandon Browner. But right now in this defense, he projects as the nickel corner. You know, you have to figure that Revis is your number 1 guy, Brown is your number 2 guy, and then Dennard will fill in as needed with Arrington in the slot. But just seeing him back out here gives another layer of depth to this Patriots secondary. It's a good thing for New England fans.
See, I disagree with you this much in that I think Logan Ryan, Chris, has a chance to beat out Alfonso Dennard, because in talking with some people and observers close to the Patriots camp here in FOXBORO, the one word you keep hearing with Alfonso Dennard is trust. Dennard has to regain the trust not only of the coaching staff but of his teammates. You agree?
Yeah, and I do think there is something to the idea that Logan Ryan is going to push them this year for playing time. And I think, again, that goes back to what we were talking about before when it comes to a depth situation. This is not a situation like they had a couple of years ago, where you really needed Alfonso Dennard in this offense. Right now, he's a good complementary piece who, again, is probably going to be pushed by some of the younger defensive backs when it comes to playing time.
And we should note that, speaking of Logan Ryan, he sat on a pattern this morning at practice and picked off none other than Tom Brady. It was a nice sit pattern. They didn't have to do much, but it was Logan Ryan leading Tom Brady off the snap, and a good sign for number 26, as we said, fights for a spot. Also, Aaron Dobson was on the field here, running on the side, not in pads whatsoever. The report out there is the Boston Herald reporting that he had a pin permanently placed in his surgically repaired foot. What do you make of that?
I think that he needs to get back on the field as soon as possible. It's not like he's going to be in danger of losing a roster spot, because I don't think that they would, putting him a coaching here, give up on a second round pick so early in his career. But Tom said it over in the spring. He said, look, when you get to training camp, the train is running, and if you don't get on the train, it's going to be a struggle for you. So you want to see him on the field sooner rather than later. We talked about depth at the cornerback spot. I think the presence of Dobson at that wide receiver position gives another layer of depth to the wide receiver spot.
One other player that spoke today that certainly figures to have a huge role on this team, and Bill Belichick spoke about him at length on Tuesday morning, was Ryan Wendell, the center. He said that, look, I know that when you bring in Brian Stork, that's competition, but we all are here on the same team until we're told otherwise. We're all playing for the same head coach. Ryan Wendell, what kind of challenges and what kind of hill does he have to climb this year to improve upon his pass protection, which, by the way, Chris, he was asked about, and he said, we can all improve in some areas. Yeah. In other words, he's acknowledging he had a rough year last year protecting Tom Brady.
I think Ryan Wendell is a really interesting guy for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's a guy who played more snaps than just about anyone else in the National Football League over the last couple of years. Slightly undersized center. I wonder if the extra work has kind of gotten to him a little bit. I wonder if they've maximized their window with him. It was interesting. Apparently, Brian Stork went down early in practice today. We don't know the severity of the injury, so Wendell ended up taking the majority of the snaps. So it's going to be interesting to see going forward how that position shakes out. But they're very secure, I would think, with Ryan Wendell at this spot. But again, you bring in a guy like Brian Stork, a guy who won the Remington Award last year as the nation's top center, a peerless resume as a collegian. It only makes sense that he's going to push the guy who's the incumbent right now.
All right, that is day number 3 of padded practice, wrapping up here at Gillette Stadium. Speaking of centers, a couple of special guests were on hand. Dan Copen was in the media tent. Of course, he knows a thing or two about snapping the ball to Tom Brady. And also Charlie Weiss, the head coach at the University of Kansas, was in attendance, the former offensive coordinator, actually the coordinator of that last Patriots team that won the Super Bowl 39 in Jacksonville. We'll be back here on Wednesday as the Patriots resume practice, training camp 2014. For Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia outside Gillette Stadium, WEEI.com.